copper taste wouldn't leave her mouth. Elena pressed herself against the rough bark of the storage shed, her ribs screaming with each shallow breath. The new moon hung invisible above Shadow Ridge territory, and in that darkness, Mercy had become a memory. Her wolf whimpered somewhere deep inside her chest, a sound no one else could hear, a sound that had grown quieter with each passing season until it was barely an echo. The pack house blazed with firelight 50 yards away. Laughter drifted through the trees, sharp and cruel. They were celebrating something. They were always celebrating something. She should have stayed hidden. Should have known better than to cross the clearing for the scraps left outside the kitchen. But hunger had made her reckless, and Garrett, the beta's son, all bulk and entitlement, had been waiting. His scent still clung to her torn sleeve. Sweat and aggression and the sour reek of a wolf who took pleasure in another's fear. Elena touched her split lip carefully, felt the sting, tasted iron again. Her wolf stirred, angry for the first time in months, but anger was dangerous. Anger got you noticed. Noticed got you hurt worse. A branch snapped. Her body went rigid, prey still, every muscle locked. Not again. Not tonight. She couldn't take another. "Don't move." The voice came from her left, low and controlled. Not Garrett, not anyone from Shadow Ridge. The scent hit her half a second later. Pine and steel, and something clean that made her wolf lift its head with confusion. Foreign wolves, on their territory. Two figures materialized from the shadows, moving with the fluid grace of trained warriors. The woman was tall, dark-haired, her eyes reflecting moonlight that shouldn't exist on a new moon night. The man beside her was broader, scarred, his hand resting casually on the knife at his belt. "Blood Moon Scouts," the woman said quietly, her gaze fixed on something beyond Elena. "We're on patrol rights territory. We heard." She stopped, her nostrils flared. When she looked at Elena directly, something shifted in her expression. "Moon's mercy. What have they done to you?" Elena said nothing. Words were weapons that could be used against you. The clearing behind her erupted with noise. Garrett's voice, slurred and furious. Where'd the little Omega bitch go? Wasn't finished teaching her. He stopped when he saw the Blood Moon Scouts. The air changed. Pack magic crackled, territorial and violent. Garrett's wolf surged beneath his skin, making his eyes flash gold, making his shoulders broaden. 3 more Shadow Ridge wolves flanked him, all dominant, all spoiling for a fight. "You're on Shadow Ridge land," Garrett snarled. "State your business or bleed." The male scout didn't move, but something in his stillness was more threatening than any growl. "Patrol treaty, signed by your alpha 10 years back. We heard a disturbance. Pack law requires—" "Heard an Omega learning her place," Garrett cut in. He smiled, all teeth. "Nothing that concerns Blood Moon." Elena watched the female scout's jaw tighten, watched her breathe in once, twice scenting the blood, the fear, the violence baked into Shadow Ridge's very soil. "The Omega," the woman said carefully. "She's injured. Pack law requires aid be offered to— She's ours." Garrett took a step forward. "And you're leaving. Now." The tension stretched like a wire about to snap. Elena's heart hammered against her damaged ribs. This was it. Blood Moon would leave because they had to, because pack politics mattered more than one broken Omega. And Garrett would make sure she paid for this humiliation in ways that would leave new scars layered over old. The male scout spoke 2 words. Alpha's discretion. Garrett paled. Even through her fear, Elena understood. Blood Moon could invoke their alpha's right to intervene in cases of pack law violation. It would mean politics, challenges, possible territory disputes. Shadow Ridge was weak, had been weak for years. They couldn't afford Blood Moon's attention. The woman turned to Elena. "You have a choice. Stay here, or cross the boundary with us. If you come, Shadow Ridge loses claim. You'll answer to blood moon law instead. Stay and die slowly, or leave with strangers." Elena's wolf stirred again, pushing against her ribs like it was testing the bars of a cage it had forgotten existed. She stood. Her legs shook. Her vision swam. But she stood. "I'll go." Garrett's snarl could have stripped bark from trees, but the Blood Moon scouts moved like water, flanking her, creating a barrier of foreign pack scent and cold authority. They walked her to the boundary, an invisible line she'd never dared cross in 18 years. "Step over," the woman said quietly. "And don't look back." Elena's bare feet touched the earth on the far side of Shadow Ridge territory. The boundary magic hummed against her soles, recognition and release. Her wolf whimpered, confused by freedom. The scent hit her then. Pine, yes, but underneath power that didn't crush, strength that didn't hunger for weakness. Pack that meant something other than survival. In the distance, a howl rose, deep, commanding, not a warning, a call. Her wolf responded before she could stop it, a broken, rusty sound that clawed its way up her throat and shattered the night. And somewhere in Blood Moon territory, something answered back. The cabin smelled like cedar, and something herbal Elena couldn't name. She stood in the doorway, unable to cross the threshold. 3 days since the boundary crossing. 3 days of waiting for the trap to spring. The female scout, Mira, she'd said her name was, had brought her here at dawn, to this small structure tucked between 2 ancient pines at the edge of Blood Moon's main settlement. "It's yours," Mira had said, setting a basket of bread and dried meat on the wooden table inside. "For as long as you need it." Elena had said nothing. Wolves didn't give things without expecting payment, but Mira had simply touched her shoulder, gentle, brief, and left. Now, as afternoon light slanted through the single window, Elena finally stepped inside. The floor didn't collapse. No one came to chain her. There was a bed with actual blankets, a chair, a small fireplace already stacked with wood. Her wolf paced uncertainly in her chest, confused by the absence of cruelty. She ate the bread slowly, waiting for her stomach to reject it out of habit. It didn't. She slept on the floor anyway. The bed felt like a lie. The full moon came on the 3rd night. Elena woke to howls, dozens of them, layered and harmonic, calling from the heart of Blood Moon territory. Her wolf slammed against her ribs, desperate and terrified in equal measure. The pull was instinctive, ancient. The pack was gathering for the run, and every wolf in her screamed to join them. She pressed her forehead against the cabin wall and focused on breathing. She couldn't shift with them. Couldn't let them see how broken her wolf was, how the transformation stuttered and hurt, because Shadow Ridge had beaten the smoothness out of it. Couldn't risk being seen. The howls grew louder, closer. Through the window, she watched wolves streaming past, sleek bodies flowing like water toward the central clearing, their joy palpable even from a distance. Pups tumbled over their parents' paws. Elders moved with dignified grace. Warriors playfully nipped at each other's flanks. Pack. Real pack. The kind that existed in stories Elena had stopped believing. Her wolf whined, aching. "No," she whispered. "We stay hidden. It's safer." But the moon goddess had other plans. The light changed. Elena looked up through the window and saw the full moon crest the tree line, impossibly large, impossibly bright. Its radiance poured through the glass like liquid silver, and where it touched her skin, something ignited, pain, blinding, and absolute. Her wolf didn't ask permission. It exploded forward, seizing control with a violence that drove Elena to her knees. Bones stretched, snapped, reformed. Her scream became a howl. The shift that usually took minutes happened in seconds, forced by a power that had nothing to do with her will. She crashed through the cabin door on 4 legs, her vision sharper, her wolf's panic now hers. Run. Hide. Too exposed. Too visible. 2. The silver light intensified, focused, burning across her left collarbone like a brand being pressed into flesh. Elena's wolf stumbled, yelping as the mark seared itself into existence. She could feel it, hot and undeniable, spreading beneath her fur in patterns she couldn't see but somehow knew. The Luna's mark. Impossible. The clearing full of blood moon wolves had gone silent. Every head turned toward her. Every eye reflected moonlight and shock. Elena's wolf dropped low, submissive, terrified. Wrong. This was wrong. She was Omega. She was nothing. The moon goddess had made a mistake. Then she smelled him, cedar and smoke and wild winter nights. The scent hit her wolf like a physical blow, and her head jerked up against her will. Across the clearing, standing apart from his pack, was a man who carried authority the way mountains carried snow. Darius, the Alpha. She knew without being told. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his dark hair silvered at the temples. Scars traced his forearms, old battles, survived. But it was his eyes that trapped her. Amber, ancient, holding the weight of too many losses. The bond snapped into place like a bear trap closing. Elena felt it slam through her chest, a golden thread that shouldn't exist, connecting her wolf to his with such force that her legs buckled. The world narrowed to just him. Just the mate bond screaming recognition, rightness, home. Her wolf surged forward, desperate to close the distance, to touch, to confirm what the moon goddess had declared. Darius stared at her. His wolf blazed in his eyes, fighting him, demanding. The air between them crackled with pack magic and something older. The bond pulled taut, singing. He said nothing. Turned, walked away. The bond in Elena's chest screamed. Her wolf howled, a sound of such raw anguish that several pack members flinched. Rejection. Again. Even the moon goddess's declaration wasn't enough to make her worthy of. Her legs gave out. She collapsed in the silver moonlight, human again without meaning to shift back, naked and marked and shaking. Mira was there suddenly, wrapping a cloak around her shoulders, murmuring something Elena couldn't hear past the roaring in her ears. The pack dispersed quietly. The run abandoned. Elena let herself be led back to the cabin. Let Mira settle her on the bed she'd refused before. The older woman said nothing, just brushed the hair from Elena's face with a tenderness that made something crack in her chest. When Mira finally left, Elena curled around the bond that pulsed with golden agony, and then she felt him. Miles away in the Alpha's den, Darius was awake, pacing, fighting the pull with every ounce of his considerable will. Through the bond, Elena tasted his emotion for the first time. Not anger, not disgust, grief. Old and deep and rooted like ancient trees. Grief that had calcified into walls he'd built to protect what remained of his ravaged heart. He was afraid of her, and somehow, that was worse than hatred. 4 weeks. 28 days of living with a bond that sang constantly beneath Elena's skin, while the man on the other end pretended she didn't exist. The training grounds smelled like sweat and pine needles and determination. Elena hit the dirt for the 6th time that morning, her shoulder screaming where it had connected with packed earth. Above her, Cade extended a hand, grinning despite the fact that he'd just thrown her. "Better," he said. "You almost blocked that one." Elena took his hand, let him pull her up. The young warrior had appointed himself her unofficial mentor 3 days into her integration, treating her fumbling attempts at combat training with the patient amusement of an older brother. He was 19, all lean muscle and easy confidence, and he never once looked at her like she was broken. "Again," she said, ignoring the ache in her ribs. Cade's grin widened. "That's what I like to hear." They circled each other. Elena tried to remember the footwork Mira had shown her. Balance, center of gravity, anticipate the... A branch cracked at the forest edge. Elena flinched violently, her body dropping into a defensive crouch, arms raised to protect her head. The clearing went silent. Shame burned through her chest. Just a deer. Just a goddamn deer moving through the underbrush. Cade didn't mention it, just reset his stance and waited until Elena's breathing steadied. One more round? She nodded, grateful beyond words. They trained until the morning bell called the pack to midday meal. Elena retreated to the archives instead of joining them. The vast room beneath the pack house had become her sanctuary, floor-to-ceiling shelves crammed with journals, treaties, bloodline records stretching back centuries. She could lose herself here. Could almost forget the bond that pulsed with proximity every time Darius was in the main building above her head. Today, she was hunting for something specific. A name Mira had let slip while tending the bruises that now decorated Elena's arms like a patchwork map. "You're coloring," the healer had murmured, running gentle fingers through Elena's dark hair. "And those eyes. My grandmother once told me about a Luna line that carried silver in their gaze. Silvercrest, I think. Long gone now." Silvercrest. Elena pulled another dusty volume from the shelves, squinting at the faded script. Bloodlines of the Northern Territories, circa 1890. She flipped through brittle pages, past pack names that meant nothing, until, there, a family tree diagram, sprawling and complex. And at one of the branches, Lissa Silvercrest, bonded to Marcus Volkov of Shadow Ridge. One daughter, Elena. Status, presumed deceased. Elena's hands shook, her mother's name, her actual, real name, written in permanent ink. And Silvercrest, not extinct, not gone. Hidden. She traced the entry above her mother's. The notation read, Lunaborn, moon-blessed, authority over pack hierarchy regardless of alpha bond. The archives door opened. Elena knew who it was before she turned. The bond flared hot and urgent, and his scent wrapped around her like smoke. Cedar and winter and that wild thing her wolf whined for. Darius stood in the doorway, a folder in his hands, his expression carefully neutral. Their eyes met for half a second before he looked away. He moved to the opposite side of the room, set the folder on a reading table, and began to leave. Elena's voice cracked when she spoke. "How long are you going to pretend I don't exist?" He stopped. His shoulders tensed beneath the dark shirt he wore. The bond between them pulled taut, aching. "I'm not pretending anything," he said quietly. "Then what do you call this?" She gestured between them, frustration bleeding through. "The moon goddess herself marked us, and you won't even look at me. If you don't want me, just say it. Break the bond officially and end this." Darius turned then, and the grief in his amber eyes nearly drove her back a step. "You think I don't want you?" The rawness in his voice sent shivers down her spine. "Every instinct I have screams to claim you," he continued, taking one step closer. "Just one. My wolf batters against my control every time you're near. I can feel you through the bond, your fear, your pain, your determination to survive, and it's killing me." "Then why?" "Because everyone I love dies screaming." The words came out jagged. "My first mate, Kara. Hunters burned her alive while I was too far away to save her. My parents. My sister. I have buried every person I've ever—" He stopped, jaw clenched. "I will not watch you burn too." Elena's breath caught. Through the bond, she felt the truth of it. Terror so profound it had calcified into walls, protection masquerading as rejection. "I'm not asking you to protect me," she said softly. "I'm asking you to stop running." Something flickered in his eyes. Want. Desperate and dangerous. His hand lifted, almost reaching for her face. Then he caught himself. Stepped back. The distance felt like a chasm. "I'm sorry," he whispered, and left. Elena stood alone in the archives, her mother's name still open on the page behind her, the bond in her chest screaming. That night, exhausted from training and emotional whiplash, she fell asleep still wearing the cloak Mira had lent her. one that had previously belonged to Darius, one that carried his scent in every fiber. The dream came violent and immediate. She was running through darkness, desperation sharp as broken glass. Smoke choked the air, flames painted the night orange and hellish. And there, a cabin engulfed, a woman's scream rising above the roar of fire. Golden hair, burning. The scream wouldn't stop, wouldn't end, would echo forever. Elena woke gasping, tears streaming down her face. But they weren't her tears, weren't her memories. The bond pulsed between them, deeper than she'd known, deep enough to share dreams, share nightmares, and somewhere in the Alpha's den, she felt Darius wake too. The rogue attack started 2 weeks after Elena's nightmare bleeding into Darius's sleep. First, the Northern Border Patrol found 3 sentries torn apart, their bodies arranged in a pattern that made the pack's tracker vomit. Then the Eastern Perimeter, livestock slaughtered and left to rot. The attacks were coordinated, deliberate. Someone was testing Blood Moon's defenses. Elena heard the reports during evening meal, watched Darius's jaw tighten with each new piece of intelligence. Through the bond, which had grown stronger despite his determination to ignore it, she felt his wolf prowling, calculating, preparing for war. She didn't expect him to let her leave pack grounds. "Supply run to the outer village," Mira announced at dawn, tossing Elena a travel pack. "You, me, Cade, and 2 warriors. We need herbs from the southern supplier, and you need to see more of our territory." Elena glanced toward the pack house where Darius was undoubtedly strategizing with his council. He hadn't forbidden her from going, hadn't acknowledged she existed enough to forbid anything. They left within the hour. The outer village sat nestled in a valley 3 miles from Pack Central, a collection of cabins housing wolves who preferred distance from pack politics. The morning was crisp, autumn bright, and Cade kept up a running commentary about the territory that made Elena almost smile. The attack came when they were halfway back, arms laden with supplies. The first rogue hit Mira from behind, driving her into a tree with enough force to crack wood. Elena dropped her pack, her wolf surging forward on instinct, but there were too many, 6, 8, more melting from the forest. Their eyes were wrong, wild and coordinated simultaneously. "Run!" Cade shoved Elena behind him, already shifting, his clothes shredding. The 2 warriors flanked them, snarling defiance, but they were outnumbered 3-1. A massive gray rogue lunged past the warriors, jaws open, aiming directly for Elena. She stumbled backward, terror freezing her limbs. This was it. This was... Cade intercepted the attack, his wolf form colliding with the rogue mid-leap. They went down in a tangle of fur and fury. Blood sprayed hot across Elena's face. Cade's blood. The rogue's claws had opened his flank from shoulder to hip. Something inside Elena shattered. Not fear this time. Rage. Pure and incandescent and utterly foreign. Her wolf didn't whimper or cower. It exploded forward with a roar that belonged to something far larger than her small frame should contain. The shift tore through her, smoother than it had ever been, and power came with it. Electric. Burning through her veins like liquid lightning. She didn't understand it, couldn't control it, but her wolf knew exactly what to do. Elena's voice, layered with authority she had no right to possess, cut through the chaos like a blade. Stop. The command hit the rogues like a physical blow. 2 of them yelped, stumbling backward as if struck. Their wolves flattened, submission forced through their spines against their will. Even the warriors on her own side wavered, their wolves responding to an alpha authority that shouldn't exist in someone who wasn't alpha. The gray rogue who'd wounded Cade snarled, fighting the compulsion, and lunged again. Elena's hands came up instinctively. Power, silver and ancient, blazed from her palms. Not fire, not lightning, something older. The rogue hit an invisible barrier and was thrown backward 15 feet, hitting a tree with a sickening crack. The remaining rogues fled. Elena dropped to her knees beside Cade's human form, her hands, still glowing faintly, pressing against the gushing wound in his side. "Don't you dare," she whispered fiercely. "Don't you dare die." The glow intensified beneath her palms. She felt something flowing out of her, into him. Warmth. Healing. Power she didn't understand but channeled anyway through sheer desperate will. Cade's breathing steadied. The bleeding slowed. Then Darius arrived. She heard him before she saw him. A howl of pure fury that shook leaves from trees. He materialized from the forest with a dozen warriors, his wolf form massive and dark as a storm. The glow intensified beneath her palms. She felt something flowing out of her, into him. Warmth. Healing. Power she didn't understand but channeled anyway through sheer desperate will. Cade's breathing steadied. The bleeding slowed. Then Darius arrived. She heard him before she saw him. A howl of pure fury that shook leaves from trees. He materialized from the forest with a dozen warriors, his wolf form massive and dark as a storm. He shifted mid-stride, human again, his eyes blazing amber and wild as they locked on Elena, on the blood covering her, on her hands still pressed to Cade's wound. He was on her in 3 strides, his hands, rough, shaking, gripping her face, tilting her head, checking for injuries with a franticness that shattered every wall he'd built between them. The bond roared to life, desperate and demanding. "Where are you hurt?" His voice was gravel and broken. "Elena, where?" "Not mine," she managed. "Cade. They were after me specifically. They knew about the mark." Darius's hands slid to her shoulders, her arms, checking anyway, his control completely obliterated. His breath came uneven against her temple. He smelled like desperation and pack magic, and that wild thing her wolf had been howling for since the moment the bond snapped into place. "If you had died." He stopped, his forehead dropping to touch hers. "I can't." The bond between them pulsed, golden and inevitable. He was going to kiss her. She could feel the intention in every trembling muscle, could taste his need through their connection. He stopped himself, pulled back with visible effort, even as his wolf snarled in protest. But something had shifted. His eyes, when they met hers, held promise instead of distance. That night, the pack elder Ancient Marcus, who'd been advising Blood Moon Alphas for 70 years, stood before the council and spoke 3 words that changed everything. "She's Silvercrest born." The room went silent. "The power she displayed," Marcus continued, his gaze heavy on Elena, "is unique to that bloodline. Moon-blessed Lunas who can command any wolf, even alphas. They were hunted to extinction 30 years ago." He paused. "Or so we thought." Through the bond, Elena felt Darius's realization crystallize into cold dread. "If she displayed that power," Marcus said quietly, "then the wolves who destroyed her family now know she's alive." The message arrived at dawn, carried by a rogue with a white flag tied to his wrist and terror in his eyes. Elena stood in the council room, surrounded by Blood Moon's leadership, as Darius read the formal challenge aloud. His voice was steady, but through the bond she felt his rage, cold and controlled and absolutely lethal. "To Darius of Blood Moon," he read, "you harbor stolen property. The Silvercrest heir belongs to Ironjaw by right of conquest. Return her within 3 days, or we will come take her. Signed, Victor, Alpha of Ironjaw." The council erupted. Warriors shouted for war. Elders demanded negotiation. Elena's hands clenched at her sides, her wolf snarling at being called property. Darius raised one hand. Silence fell instantly. "We don't negotiate with wolves who threaten our pack," he said quietly. "Prepare for war." The meeting dissolved into strategic planning. Elena slipped away, her chest tight. She found Mira in the healing house, grinding herbs with methodical precision. "Tell me about my mother," Elena said. Mira's hands stilled. After a long moment, She gestured to the chair beside her. Sit. The story came in pieces, assembled from Mira's memories and the pack historian's records. Lisa Silvercrest, last of the moon-blessed Luna line. Powerful enough to command armies. Victor had wanted her, had hunted her family systematically. When Lisa bonded with Marcus of Shadow Ridge instead, a weak pack, a safe hiding place, Victor turned his attention to destroying the bloodline entirely. She hid you there, Mira said softly. Made Shadow Ridge think you were just another Omega, powerless and forgettable. Then she led Victor's hunters on a chase that lasted 3 months. They caught her at the western coast. Mira's voice cracked. She fought, made them work for it, died so you could live hidden. Elena tasted salt, hadn't realized she was crying. Victor wants you because a Silvercrest Luna bonded to his bloodline would make him unstoppable, Mira continued. He could challenge any alpha and win, could unite the territories under his rule. She met Elena's eyes. You're not just a mate. You're a weapon. That night, Elena found Darius on the northern watchtower, staring out at the dark forest where Ironjaw would soon emerge. She climbed the ladder in silence, stood beside him. The bond hummed between them, no longer painful, just present. Constant. You're not giving me to him, she said. Not a question. No. Absolute. Final. Even if it means your pack dies defending me, his jaw clenched. We don't abandon our own. I'm not yours. The words came out softer than she intended. You made sure of that. Darius turned to her then, and the expression on his face made her breath catch. Longing and grief and surrender all tangled together. I've been a coward, he said roughly. Hiding behind loss, using Kara's death as an excuse to keep you at a distance. He stepped closer. The truth is, I'm terrified. Not of losing you to violence, though that fear is real. I'm terrified of what you make me feel. Elena's heart hammered. And what do I make you feel? Alive. His hand lifted, finally, cupping her face with a gentleness that contradicted his warrior's calluses. For the first time in 8 years, I want something other than survival. I want mornings. I want your laugh. I want to watch you discover your power and become the Luna you were born to be. His thumb traced her cheekbone. I want you so desperately it physically hurts. Then stop running, she whispered, echoing her words from weeks ago. Kara died because I wasn't fast enough, he continued, voice breaking. Hunters cornered her while I was on patrol. I heard her screaming through our bond and I ran. Gods, I ran. But I was too late. I held her while she burned and I couldn't do anything. Couldn't save her. Tears tracked down his face. Elena caught them with her fingers. If I love you, he whispered, and I lose you the same way. I've been dying my whole life, Elena interrupted, fierce and certain. Slowly, in pieces. Shadow Ridge was killing me one beating at a time. For once, her voice cracked. For once, let me choose to live. Really live, even if it's dangerous. Even if it's short. Let me choose you. Something in Darius shattered. He kissed her like a drowning man finding air. Desperate, reverent, claiming. The bond exploded between them, golden and inevitable. Elena kissed him back with equal ferocity, pouring 18 years of loneliness and longing into the connection. They barely made it to his quarters. The mating was fierce and tender by turns. His teeth at her throat, the exquisite pain pleasure of the claiming bite, her nails down his back, marking him as thoroughly as he marked her. The bond sealed with each touch, each whispered declaration, until Elena couldn't tell where she ended, and he began. When their wolves finally surfaced, they didn't fight for dominance. They curled around each other in the mind space, his dark and battle-scarred, hers silver and newly awakened, and for the first time in either of their lives, they were content, whole, complete. Elena felt her power sink with his, felt her wolf integrate fully with her human consciousness. Not at war, not separate. One being, perfectly balanced. They lay tangled together afterward, his hand over the Luna mark on her collarbone, her fingers tracing the scars on his chest. Through the bond, she felt his wolf's satisfaction, his human heart's tentative hope. "Whatever comes," he murmured against her hair. "We face it together." Elena nodded, breathing in cedar and smoke and home. Dawn broke cold and red. The sentry's howl of alarm shattered the peace before the sun fully crested the trees. Darius was on his feet instantly, already reaching for weapons. Through the bond, Elena felt his grim recognition. "Victor," he said. The war had begun. Ironjaw hit Bloodmoon's eastern border like an avalanche 50 wolves. Maybe more. Their howls shattering the dawn calm. Elena felt them through the bond before the sentry's alarm even finished echoing. Felt Darius's battle readiness surge through their connection. They dressed in silence, warriors preparing for war. Darius handed her a leather vest reinforced with steel, protection she didn't argue against. His kiss was brief, fierce. "Stay in the secondary defense line," he said. "Coordinate from there." Elena caught his wrist. "No." His eyes flashed amber. "Elena, I'm not hiding." She met his gaze steadily. "Victor wants me. Let him come. Let him see exactly what a Silvercrest Luna can do." Through the bond, she felt his wolf's pride war with his terror. Finally, he nodded once. Together then, they reached the battlefield as Ironjaw breached the tree line. Victor led the charge, a massive rust-colored wolf with scars mapping his face and cruelty in his yellow eyes. He shifted mid-stride, human again, naked and unashamed in his violence. His gaze found Elena immediately, and his smile was all teeth. "There she is," he called. "The little Omega playing at Luna. Did you really think Bloodmoon could protect you?" Elena stepped forward before Darius could stop her. Power hummed beneath her skin, silver and ancient, begging for release. Her wolf was calm, focused, ready. "I'm done being protected," she said clearly. "Come claim me, Victor, if you can." His laugh was ugly. "Gladly." Ironjaw surged forward. Bloodmoon met them with coordinated fury. Warriors Darius had trained for years, moving like extensions of his will. But Ironjaw had numbers, and Victor had spent decades perfecting brutality. Elena closed her eyes, breathed, let her power unfurl. She felt every Bloodmoon wolf on the battlefield, their positions, their injuries, their fear and determination. The Silvercrest gift opened like 1,000 eyes, showing her the battle from every angle simultaneously. She could sense Cade struggling against 2 opponents on the northern flank. Mira dragging wounded toward the healing station. A young warrior about to be blindsided. Cade, left. Her voice carried pack authority, layered with power that made every wolf's ears prick. "Mira, incoming from the east. Marcus, intercept." They obeyed instantly, instinctively. Elena's commands flowed faster, coordinating defense with strategic precision she hadn't known she possessed. When 3 Ironjaw wolves cornered a Bloodmoon elder, she thrust her hand forward and silver light blazed from her palm, a shield that sent the attackers flying backward. Victor's roar of rage shook the trees. He abandoned the fight with Darius and charged directly at Elena, murder in his eyes. She stood her ground. He hit her shield at full speed and bounced off, snarling. "Impossible. You're untrained. You're nothing." "I was nothing," Elena corrected, power crackling around her fingers. "I'm done with that." They circled each other. Victor lunged again, claws extended. Elena moved with fluid grace she'd learned from weeks of training, from Cade's patient instruction, from finally understanding that her body was a weapon instead of just a target. She caught his wrist, twisted, and sent him stumbling. "Submit," she said quietly. "Leave Bloodmoon territory. Never return." Victor's laugh was ragged. "I've hunted Silvercrest for 30 years. Killed your grandmother with my own claws. Watched your mother bleed out begging for mercy." He shifted partially, his face elongating into something between man and beast. "You think I'll bow to you?" "I think you'll choose." Elena's power flared, silver light blazing bright enough to cast shadows in full daylight. "Submission or death? Decide." He chose pride, lunged for her throat one final time. Elena's hand shot forward, her Silvercrest gift responding with absolute authority. Victor froze mid-leap, his wolf forcibly wrenched into submission by power older than pack politics. He hit the ground hard, whimpering, his body betraying him against his will. Elena stood over him, her hand still raised, power thrumming through every nerve. She could kill him. Should kill him. For her mother. For her grandmother. For every Silvercrest who died screaming. But she chose mercy. "I strip your rank," she said, her voice echoing with ancient Luna authority. "You are packless, nameless, Omega." The words burned with silver fire, binding magic that every wolf present felt in their bones. "If you ever threaten mine again, there will be no second chance." Victor collapsed, broken. His pack, leaderless, terrified, fled into the forest. The battlefield went silent. Then, starting with Mira and spreading like wildfire, blood moon wolves threw back their heads and howled. Acceptance, triumph, recognition of their true Luna. Elena's knees buckled. Darius caught her, held her against his chest while their pack's voices rose in unified song. Through the bond, she felt his pride, his love, his absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. That night, beneath the full moon, the pack gathered at the ceremonial grounds. Elder Marcus approached Elena with a circlet of silver and moonstone, the Luna's crown, worn by Blood Moon's female leaders for generations. "Elena Silvercrest," he said, his ancient voice carrying. "Luna of Blood Moon, protector, leader, mate." The crown settled on her head, cool metal warming against her skin. The pack howled again, joyous and unified. Darius took her hand, led her to the highest point of their territory. Below, the pack celebrated. Above, the moon shone full and bright. "My Luna," he murmured, pulling her close. "My Alpha," she answered, breathing in cedar and smoke and home, two broken souls, now whole, leading their pack into a new era. Elena's fingers traced the Luna mark on her collarbone absently. It pulsed once with silver light. In the forest beyond, a lone wolf watched from the shadows. On its shoulder, barely visible, was a mark Elena would have recognized. The Silvercrest crest, ancient and unmistakable. The bloodline, it seemed, had more secrets yet to surface.